Let me start with a truth most people overlook. Silence is not weakness. Silence is not surrender. Silence is not absence. Silence is power. The world today is loud, filled with opinions, noise, constant chatter, and endless distractions. Most people feel the need to fill every space with sound, with explanations, with arguments. But let me tell you, the most dangerous person in the room is often the one who speaks the least. Why? Because silence allows you to see, to hear, and to think with clarity. It's not the one who talks the most who wins. It's the one who listens the deepest and acts with precision. Silence is one of the most underestimated forces in life. Most people think power is found in loud voices, big speeches, or dominating a conversation, but true strength is often hidden in the quiet spaces. When you master the art of silence, you don't lose influence, you multiply it. Imagine you walk into a room where everyone is trying to out-talk each other. The person who speaks the least, yet listens the most, instantly stands out. Why? Because they are not competing for attention. They are commanding it without saying a word. That's the kind of strength silence gives you the ability to influence without forcing yourself into the noise. Think about a lion on the hunt. The king of the jungle doesn't roar while stalking prey. It moves silently, patiently, with precision. The roar only comes after the victory. That's how powerful silence is. It's not passive, it's preparation. Too many people think silence means weakness or shyness. They believe if they don't speak up constantly, they'll be overlooked. But in reality, silence is not the absence of power, it's the storage of it. The moment you understand this, you stop feeling the need to react to everything instantly. You stop rushing to fill every gap in a conversation. You realize that the one who holds their words holds the leverage. Most people give away their strength by speaking too soon. They feel uncomfortable with pauses, so they fill them with unnecessary explanations, opinions, or just noise. But here's the secret. Silence creates pressure, and pressure makes people reveal their true selves. Picture yourself in a negotiation. The other person throws out an offer, expecting you to respond immediately. Instead, you stay quiet. That pause becomes uncomfortable for them, and in their discomfort, they might start talking more, revealing information you can use, or even improving their own offer without you saying a word. That's not just clever, it's mastery. Silence also shifts the balance of power. When you speak less, people lean toward you instead of you chasing them. They study your expressions, they wonder what you're thinking, and they replay your last words in their minds. They fill in the blanks with meaning, and often that meaning is more impactful than anything you could have explained. This is why the most effective leaders and influencers are not the ones talking the most. They're the ones who know exactly when to hold back. They understand that a well-placed pause can carry more weight than 100 words. Speaking all the time is like spending money without tracking it. You use up your influence without realizing you're running out. Every word you speak costs a little bit of your authority. But when you remain silent, you're not spending, you're saving. And when you finally decide to speak, your words carry a weight that commands respect. One well-timed sentence after a long, intentional pause can land with the force of a hammer blow. People remember it. They quote it. They act on it. That's the kind of impact that silence allows you to create. The truth is, silence is not emptiness. It's space for strategy. It's the pause before the punchline, the calm before the breakthrough, the stillness before the storm. When you stop fearing silence and start using it as a tool, you'll find yourself in control more often than you ever thought possible. you'll realize that in a world obsessed with noise, the quiet ones often win, not because they speak less, but because when they do, it changes everything. Silence is more than just the absence of words. It is the presence of awareness. In a world where most people listen only to reply, not to understand, mastering the art of listening gives you an advantage that few ever realize. When you truly listen, you do more than hear the sound of someone's voice. You catch the pauses between their words, the tone they're using, the emotions they're hiding, and even the things they choose not to say. And that's where the truth lies. Not in the noise, but in the spaces. Think about the last conversation you had with someone who truly listened to you. Not the kind of listening where they nod while planning their own response, but the kind where you felt they were entirely present with you, absorbing every word. How did it make you feel? Seen, heard, respected. That's the power you can give to others when you make listening your strength. People open up to those who make them feel understood, and that trust is priceless. It can win you allies, build deeper relationships, and open doors that talking could never unlock. Listening is also a mirror. When you give someone your full attention without judgment or interruption, they begin to hear themselves more clearly. They catch their own contradictions. They realize what they truly mean. Sometimes, the greatest gift you can give someone is the silence in which they can discover their own truth. And here's the hook. You're not just learning about them. You're learning how they think, what they value, and how they make decisions. In every conversation, listening turns into a masterclass in human behavior. When you listen with intent, you start to pick up on things others miss. That client who says, "I'm fine with the deal," but glances away right after, they're not fine. That friend who insists, "I'm over it," but their voice drops slightly when they say it, they're not over it. Words can lie, but the tone, the rhythm, the hesitations, those are harder to fake. And when you catch them, you gain an advantage not to manipulate, but to respond in ways that actually matter. The greatest communicators in history weren't just powerful speakers. They were extraordinary listeners. They understood that speaking is only one half of communication. Listening is the other half, and it's the half that allows you to speak with precision. Because when you've heard everything, what was said, what was implied, and what was left unsaid, you can respond with clarity that cuts straight to the heart. People respect that. They respect the one who doesn't just talk well, but understands deeply. There's another layer to listening most people overlook. It forces you to slow down. In a fast-paced world where everyone is racing to prove themselves, slowing down is an act of power. You're not rushing to get your point across. You're not desperate to fill the air. You're taking your time, and in that time, you're gathering more than just words. You're gathering wisdom. And wisdom always outlasts noise. Listening also disarms people. When you don't challenge them immediately, when you don't jump in to correct or argue, they relax. They feel safe enough to share more. And often that's when the real story comes out. This is why skilled negotiators, therapists, and leaders master the art of listening. They know that silence combined with genuine attention makes people reveal their true selves. And once you see the truth, you can navigate the situation with far more precision than someone who only hears the surface. So here's the truth. If you want to be influential, don't rush to be the one speaking the most. Be the one listening the deepest. Because the person who speaks may have the moment, but the person who listens will have the understanding. And understanding is the kind of power that not only shapes conversations, It shapes outcomes. Silence has a way of amplifying what truly matters inside you. In the constant noise of life, social media updates, endless conversations, notifications pulling at your attention, you can forget the sound of your own thoughts. But when you choose silence intentionally, you create space for self-reflection, and in that space, clarity begins to emerge. It's in those quiet moments that you start to recognize patterns in your life, the mistakes you've been repeating, and the truths you've been avoiding. The world will always try to keep you busy because a busy mind doesn't have time to ask the hard questions. But silence forces you to face them, and that's where real growth begins. Think about it. How often do you actually stop to evaluate your direction, your decisions, and your desires without outside noise influencing you? Most people live reactively, responding to whatever is loudest in their life at the moment. But when you master the art of silence, you're no longer reactive, you're intentional. You're not just drifting with the current, you're choosing the course. This is why leaders, visionaries, and thinkers throughout history have valued solitude, because it's the training ground for clarity. Self-reflection through silence doesn't just help you see where you are, it helps you understand why you're there. You start to see the beliefs that have been driving your choices. You notice the fears that have been holding you back. And perhaps most importantly, you realize how much of your life has been shaped by the expectations of others rather than your own convictions. In the noise, it's hard to tell which thoughts are truly yours. In the silence, those borrowed voices fade, and what's left is your authentic self. Here's the hook. Silence not only reveals the truth, it also helps you create it. Because once you become aware of what's been shaping you, you can decide what stays and what goes. You can reframe your thinking, let go of what no longer serves you, and design a new path based on clarity instead of confusion. Most people think they need more motivation to change their lives. The truth is, they need more reflection. Motivation without reflection can send you running faster in the wrong direction. Reflection ensures you're running toward the right one. When you give yourself the gift of stillness, you also sharpen your intuition. That inner voice that often gets drowned out by the world begins to grow stronger. You start recognizing when something feels right and when something feels off before the facts even confirm it. This isn't magic. It's the result of being in tune with yourself. And that kind of alignment is rare because it requires the discipline to step away from distractions and sit with your own thoughts long enough to understand them. Silence also gives you the space to process emotions before they control your actions. How many times have you reacted in the heat of the moment only to regret it later? In silence, you create a gap between stimulus and response, and in that gap lies your power. Instead of reacting, you respond. Instead of being pulled by emotion, you're guided by wisdom. People notice that. They notice when you're not quick to explode, when you speak only after thinking, when your decisions seem steady even in chaos. That steadiness earns respect. But let's be real, choosing silence in today's world is not easy. Everything around you is designed to keep you engaged, scrolling, consuming talking. That's why those who can master it stand out. They're the ones who don't get swept away by the noise. They move with purpose. They think before they speak. They live with clarity. And clarity, once you have it, makes you unstoppable because you know exactly where you're going and why. If you can train yourself to step into silence daily, even for just a few minutes, you'll begin to see the difference. You'll make better decisions. You'll feel more grounded. and you'll stop being a prisoner to noise and start being the architect of your own life. Because the truth is, you can't build something great if you're always distracted. You can only build it when you've taken the time to see it clearly first. And that clarity lives in the quiet. Silence is not just the absence of words, it's the presence of control. When you choose silence in moments when speaking would be easy, you demonstrate mastery over one of the most difficult forces to tame, your own impulses. In a world where people rush to fill every gap in conversation, where instant responses and quick opinions dominate, the person who can pause, who can listen, and who can choose their words deliberately holds a quiet, unshakable power. You see, most people equate strength with volume, with dominance in speech, with being the loudest in the room. But true strength isn't measured by how much you talk, it's measured by how much you don't need to. When you master silence, you change the way people perceive you. They start to lean in when you speak because they've learned that you don't waste words. Your silence gives your speech weight. In a heated discussion where others are quick to raise their voices and defend their point, your decision to remain calm and measured sends a message louder than shouting ever could. It says, I am in control. I am not shaken. I choose my moments. And the truth is, people respect restraint because it's rare. There's another layer to this. Silence creates mystery. In a culture that rewards oversharing, the person who keeps certain thoughts private becomes intriguing. You've probably noticed that the less someone reveals, the more others want to know about them. This isn't manipulation, it's human nature. We value what is scarce, and in an age where words are cheap and constant, your silence becomes a valuable currency. It makes people wonder about your thoughts, your plans, your knowledge. And when they wonder, they pay attention. The hook is this: silence is a weapon in the hands of those who know how to use it. It can diffuse tension in a room. It can make a point more powerfully than any speech. It can cause an opponent to reveal more than they intended. It can shift the balance of power in your favor without you saying a single word. Leaders know this. Negotiators know this. The most influential people in history knew this. They understood that silence is not emptiness. It's strategy. Think of how many situations escalate simply because someone couldn't resist the urge to respond immediately. A careless word can damage trust, end a relationship, or spark unnecessary conflict. But silence gives you time to think. It gives you time to consider the weight of your words before releasing them into the world where they can never be taken back. It allows you to choose the right response or no response at all based on what will serve your long-term goals, not just your short-term emotions. And here's the beauty of it: silence doesn't mean weakness. It doesn't mean surrender. It means you are playing the long game. It means you understand that not every battle is worth fighting, and not every opinion is worth voicing. It means you know that your value doesn't come from constant validation or from winning every argument. It comes from the results you produce and the character you display. The strongest people are not those who can shout the loudest. They are those who can walk away without saying a word, knowing that their actions will speak louder in time. Once you start practicing intentional silence, you'll notice the shift not only in how others see you, but in how you see yourself. You'll feel more in control, more deliberate, more grounded. You'll stop being pulled into every verbal tug of war. You'll start to realize that silence isn't passive. It's powerful. And the moment you realize that, you'll never look at communication the same way again, because you'll understand that the most commanding presence in the room is often the one that speaks the least. When you learn to turn silence into a tool for observation, you step into an entirely different level of influence and awareness. Most people spend their time in conversation preparing what they're going to say next instead of truly listening to what's happening around them. They're so eager to be heard that they miss the small details. The hesitation in someone's tone, the shift in their body language, the unspoken emotions between the lines. But the person who masters the art of silent observation has an edge because they see and hear what others overlook. Think about it in every room. There are two kinds of people: those who are speaking and those who are studying. The speakers reveal themselves quickly. They lay their cards on the table, often without realizing how much they've given away. The silent observer, however, gathers information like a master strategist, taking mental notes and building a deeper understanding of the situation before making a move. That kind of awareness is power. It's the reason the best leaders, negotiators, and decision makers are often the ones who speak the least in meetings. They're not disengaged. They're collecting the data that will allow them to make the most impactful statement at the right time. Silence in observation sharpens your instincts. It trains you to detect patterns and anticipate outcomes before they happen. In business, that could mean spotting an opportunity before anyone else does. In relationships, it could mean recognizing a brewing conflict before it turns into an explosion. In negotiations, it could mean identifying the exact moment when the other person is ready to agree, but doesn't want to appear too eager. When you listen more than you talk, you begin to see beneath the surface of what's being said. You start to hear the truth behind the words. Here's the hook. When you observe in silence, people will often underestimate you. They may mistake your quietness for disinterest or even weakness. But that's exactly what makes it so powerful. While they're busy overlooking you, you're quietly gathering the insights you need to influence the outcome. And when you finally do speak, your words carry the weight of someone who has listened, processed, and chosen them with precision. You don't just speak. You land your point like a perfectly aimed arrow. We live in a world addicted to noise, and that makes the skill of silent observation rare. But that rarity is exactly what makes it valuable. People reveal more in their silences than in their speeches. If you're paying attention, the pause after someone answers a question can tell you more than the answer itself. The way they avoid eye contact when certain topics come up, the change in their breathing, the shift in their posture. These are all signals, and most people miss them because they're too busy talking. But when you embrace silence, you open the door to understanding these signals and using them to your advantage. Silent observation is also a form of self-control. It keeps you from reacting emotionally and making decisions you'll regret. Instead of being drawn into an argument, you can stay quiet long enough to see the bigger picture. Instead of rushing to prove yourself, you can let others reveal themselves first. Instead of trying to dominate the conversation, you can let the conversation guide you to the right moment to step in. This patience is what separates amateurs from masters in every field, whether it's business, sports, or personal relationships. Over time, practicing silent observation changes you. You become more confident because you're no longer driven by the need to speak just to be seen. You become more respected because when you do speak, people know it's worth listening to. And you become more effective because your decisions are based on what's real, not just what's said. That's the hidden power of silence. It doesn't just help you understand others better, it helps you understand yourself. And once you grasp that, you start to see that the real game isn't always about being heard. It's about hearing what no one else notices. Silence is not just the absence of sound, it's the presence of power. When you use silence strategically, you create a space where your presence speaks louder than your words ever could. In a conversation, silence can make people lean in, wondering what you're thinking. In negotiations, it can make the other side reveal more than they planned, simply to fill the void. In conflict, it can diffuse tension by refusing to add fuel to the fire. Silence can be a sword or a shield, depending on how you wield it. And those who understand this truth can command attention without ever raising their voice. The mistake most people make is assuming that silence is passive. They think saying nothing means doing nothing. But silence, when used with intention, is one of the most active tools you can employ. Think about the greatest leaders, speakers, and negotiators you've seen. They know the value of a pause. They know that after making a strong statement, letting the words breathe allows them to sink in deeper. They understand that silence is not an absence. It's a spotlight, directing focus exactly where they want it. Here's the hook: silence creates curiosity, and curiosity creates influence. People are naturally uncomfortable with unfilled space in a conversation. If you can stay calm and composed during that space, you give others room to reveal their thoughts, fears, and motivations. In that moment, you gain the kind of insight that talking could never provide. When you master this skill, you stop chasing control and start commanding it. Silence also forces people to confront themselves. When you hold back from reacting immediately, especially in an emotionally charged situation, you give the other person a mirror. They hear their own words echoing in their mind. They start to reconsider their tone, and sometimes they even adjust their stance without you having to say a thing. It's like you've shifted the weight of the moment onto them simply by not taking the bait. That's not weakness, that's precision. Another powerful use of silence is in timing your response for maximum impact. Most people rush to fill every pause because they fear awkwardness. But if you're comfortable with that stillness, you can drop your words at the exact moment when they'll hit the hardest. The pause before the punchline in comedy is what makes it land. The pause before a life-changing statement is what makes it unforgettable. The person who understands this isn't just speaking, they're orchestrating the conversation like a composer guiding an audience through a symphony. We live in an age where the loudest voice often drowns out the wisest one. Everyone is rushing to post, to speak, to respond instantly. But if you want your voice to stand out, you have to resist that urge. Let others burn themselves out in the noise while you conserve your words for the moments that matter. When you finally do speak, the contrast between your silence and your statement will make people stop and listen. The secret is this: silence doesn't diminish your influence, it amplifies it. It makes people wonder what you know that they don't. It makes them feel that when you speak, it's worth paying attention to. And over time, it builds an aura of authority around you. That's why those who master the art of silence are often seen as more confident, more intelligent, and more in control. They've learned that words are like currency, and the less you spend them, the more valuable they become. And once you understand that, you'll stop talking to be heard and start speaking to create impact. So here's my challenge to you. Stop trying to win every argument. Stop trying to answer every attack. Stop trying to fill every silence with words. Learn to be comfortable in the pause. Learn to wait. learn to watch, learn to listen. And when you do speak, speak with purpose. Because in a world addicted to noise, the person who controls their silence controls their strength. And when you master silence, you don't just win the conversation, you win the game.